Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of the Higher Ed Geek Podcast, episode number 130 with Rohan Pasari of Cialfo, talking all about artificial intelligence and its role in supporting the mission of higher education, both institutions and students. And we even talk a little bit about high school pathways and how all this kind of works into that space as well. It was a great episode, great conversation, just sort of a serendipitous connection. It's happened a lot more this year, which I'm very grateful for. It's been making my life very easy in terms of coordinating new episodes and new topics and really new and different, interesting people to talk to. But quick housekeeping notes here. So this episode, as it comes out at the end of June, in the middle of a heat wave here in sunny Delaware, where we just moved to, me and my family, into our first house, which is very exciting. But as we are kind of emerging from a year of the pandemic and just being isolated and everything, we are looking forward to taking some time this summer to enjoy ourselves. And one thing that I am doing to help with that is putting the podcast on pause for just a couple of months. So July and August, we'll just have some rebroadcasts of old episodes to come back fresh into the feed to keep things active. But we will be back with brand new episodes the start of September. So stay tuned for that. Appreciate everybody's support and checking out all of our episodes and this one in particular. So without further ado, let's get to it. Episode number 130 with Rohan Pasari. I am super excited for this episode covering another area that we've not really kind of gone all in on is artificial intelligence, AI in higher education, just sort of the role, the impact that it's having. And folks who are just really in the thick of it, doing the work and kind of utilizing the tools to help hired professionals all over the country to do their work better and serving students and all those sorts of things. So just like, I feel like it's another in a string of covering ground that we've not really covered yet. So I'm very thankful for the time and space here today. So we will start out, as we always do, with a quick introduction and overview of your professional journey, Rohan, and how you got to be where you are today.
So really, our journey started when I was in high school myself, going through the process of college applications. So I grew up in India, and navigating as a 15-year-old, 16-year-old through the complex world of college applications is really daunting. And I remember when I was, a junior in high school, I was really trying to figure out what I wanted to do, where I wanted to study, and I was at a loss. And the running joke in India is if you're not sure what you want to do, you study engineering. I was also talking to my friends and seniors, and everyone encouraged me to take up engineering because I was studying science. So I had no really parental pressure as such. My parents were super chill. And so I ended up going to a career counselor to figure out more about myself. A few aptitude tests later, lo and behold, the test told me I should become an engineer. So there I was, trying to figure out what I wanted to do. But really, also the process of applying to colleges was in itself super daunting. We didn't really have a college counselor in my high school at the time. So we were left to our own means, figuring out the transition to university. And at that time, I also, went out to different institutions or companies in my city to see who could help me. And at the time, the prevalent service available was through agents. I'm not sure if you're aware of agents. They work with families, typically partner with institutions. And really the feedback or the advice that I got didn't seem quite right to me. They seemed clearly biased in the advice they were giving. Again, I remained at a loss. At the same time, a couple of institutions from Singapore came to my high school. That was National University of Singapore and Nanyang Technological University. I had a great experience just listening to them talk about the experience that I would have in college there. And I was really enamored by the professors who came to talk at our high school. Singapore really was not even in my radar. I was looking at the US. I had taken my SATs, got a 2350, but also the financial aid process as an international student was extremely daunting. And my parents were like, "Son, we love you, but we don't have quite $250,000 to fund the 4-year degree." So I ended up applying to the institutions in Singapore. I got a full scholarship, and I ended up at NTU. I had a great education experience, but really it was a education experience by chance, not by design. It was fortuitous that I met those high schools directly, which inspired me, and that got me thinking that this should not be how the transition from high school to university should be. And that remained in my head. I went about in college. I tried my hand in investment banking, and if you ask why investment banking, um, really, when you realize when you don't want to do engineering, um, you figure out that investment banking is the next fit for you. So I did that, and I realized two things about myself: that money was not a motivating factor, and I did not like investment banking. So at the same time, I was back in India for my summers of the year before I was graduating from college, and my sister was going through the same experience that I was, completely at loss of how to transition through college, and I was helping her figure that out. Then I started helping her friends, and then I came back to Singapore, and I was like, wait a minute, I really enjoyed myself, working with these students. How about, we start an enterprise to do this? So we graduated. I got together with my co-founder Stanley, who we are still working with together, and we started this education consultancy in Singapore to really help families and the students navigate through the arduous process of college applications. So we did that for 5 years. In our peak, we were helping about 200 students, completely bootstrapped. But again, our mission was to make education accessible for millions of students globally, and
Mhm.
we wanted to be able to scale our operations, and the only way to scale was through technology, we believed. So we ended up selling the education consultancy in 2017 to a private equity firm, and used the proceeds that we got through that sale to start Cialfo, as you see today, which is a technology company serving high schools and universities.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's I really appreciate you sharing that story, and it's interesting, even kind of halfway around the world kind of thing, where it's like facing the same struggles that really any student who's thinking about higher education faces, like you said, of like there's sort of like these layers they have to keep breaking through that all kind of have to uh, kind of line up and work out for a student to really uh, choose like the best fit program at the best place, to price and all that, and a funding structure that works for them. Like at any point they could hit enough friction to kind of just, you know, give up or end up at a place that isn't suited to their needs or best serving them, and they might have to transfer or they stop out because it's not working out and all those sort of things. So I think, yeah, what you're sort of speaking to is like, just like what you're realizing, like there has to be a better way, and just like doing it now. Obviously, there's so much great technology out there, and obviously just having that core inspiration for this work, just combining those two things is really great. So I think now, yeah, we're at so now more so the present day and the work that you're doing. So if you want to just talk a little bit more about your company and the work that it does, just to make sure we kind of have that baseline.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, right? Halfway around the world, students face the same problem. That's what we realized, that it was not a me problem necessarily.
Hmm.
It was not a problem that was just faced by students in my city or even in India or even in Asia. It is very much a global problem. Um, and our my own experience of applying, and my own experience of being an international student inspired us to really try to solve this in a global way. So Cialfo, the second company that we launched in 2018 um, started off as a SaaS solution, a software solution for high schools. So we provide a software for high schools uh, to be able to help students navigate that transition from high schools to universities. So it starts with as early as grade 9 students using the platform. So in grade 9, students on a platform can go through multiple aptitude tests, personality assessments to really figure out A, more about themselves, B, what kind of careers would be a fit for them, and then what kind of courses or majors they should be looking at first in high school and then in college. So that's how it starts, and then it progresses to being a college search engine. So we have over 50,000 university profiles on CAlpha that students can navigate through, and also then apply to these universities through CAlpha itself. And of course, you'll be like, how can a 15-year-old navigate through 50,000 universities on CAlpha? So that's where the AI elements come in, where we have recommendation engines based on students' profile. We can indicate what would be their academic fit, their preference fit, and their demonstrated interest in those colleges. Um, and really have the seamless experience of applying to the colleges. For high schools, there are other solutions on reporting, engagement, which became really important over the last 18 months, where students and schools were forced to go distance learning, go online learning, and that became a key tool to be able to stay engaged. So that's on the high school side. Then on the university side, we started really middle of last year working with universities, where universities use our software to be able to see what students would be interested in them, so they can use our data to strategize where to look for students that would be a good fit for the university, and then also engage in different activities, events, and also on demand content on our university to receive finally those applications to those universities. So for universities, it's really a recruiting tool. Um, so we work with over 1,600 high schools around the world, and it's spread almost equally around the world, in Asia, North America, Europe. And with universities, we moved from working with 0 universities in April 2020 to about 1,000 universities end of last year. And we continue working with them this year as well.
Yeah, I mean that's really impressive, and like you're kind of saying, like I think it's fortuitous timing of more digital engagement needing to happen throughout the entire student pipeline, and I appreciate you kind of also providing a context of both sort of on the high school side and the university side, and I guess wanting to focus a little bit more because you sort of spoke to like on the university side they can see sort of where more engagement or interest is coming from students. Maybe I'd imagine it'd be like, oh, we were getting a lot of traction in this region geographically, or people who are looking for this type of program or something, or these sort of maybe like amenities or something. So we'll kind of sit with this for a bit of just sort of speaking more to sort of like because I imagine you could have something set up with this that's not sort of smartly enabled with AI or anything like that. So like what do you feel like is sort of the plus one, the differentiator? Like, what's the benefit, and what problems does AI help solve for sort of the higher ed side of things?
Yeah, and before we go into right into the question, right, our foray into working with university was really came from our obsession to help our clients, to help our community, and it was a couple of counselors early part of 2020 when the pandemic was really shaping up to be what we ended up seeing in the remainder of the year. Those visits, those college physical visits that happen, all around the year in different parts of the world, really came to a standstill. And a couple of our counselors who joined the Alpha community were like, how can we use the Alpha to bridge that gap? Um, And we were like, we don't quite know how we can help you, but let's figure it out together, right? And this is a new domain for all of us. So we ended up doing this event, where we took the physical fairs online, and um, we thought it'll be for a couple of high schools. 500 students may show up. 20 universities will, come down. But that event, the first event itself, we had 5,000 students attend. 60 odd universities attended, and it just spiraled from there. We ended up doing in 2020 about 5,000 university sessions, and 400,000 students attended these events. But really, what we saw was the recruiting that was happening. Went from a physical approach to a digital approach, of using, either Zoom or different kind of virtual tools. But it was not using the full extent of the offerings that technology can give you, which really brings us to AI. Universities have so much of data at their disposal, to be able to really understand which students would be a good fit for them. Not only just looking at which students would yield to that university, but also which students would be successful in the environment that they provide to that university. Um, and and that is where AI comes in. So instead of taking the physical fairs just online, um, we are now helping universities use AI, use data that they have or even we have, to be able to help them recruit students. But just broadly speaking, right, how can AI help higher ed institutions? If you look at um, where universities are adopting technology, it's three main areas, right? It's student recruitment, delivery of their own curriculum, which is learning, and student welfare. Those are three broad areas. Now, student recruitment, if you go deeper, as I was saying, like we can use data, or universities can use data to help understand which students would yield, and but also which students would be successful. But we saw most of them were not really using it, or they were giving the same pitch to students in Korea or students in Taiwan or students in India, and yes, they're all international students, but they behave differently, and they have different challenges in those countries, and they're looking at different options in different ways. So how can you use data to really even talk about your institution very differently? Um, and again, AI has those answers. So we see some universities are really using pandemic as an accelerant to transform their practices, but some universities are still slow in adopting, those artificial intelligence, data technology. So that's just on the recruitment side. Now, if you look at the curriculum side, the learning side, institutions have focused on providing high quality content, but the way it was delivered, or the way it was meant to be received 100 years back, where you all sit in an institute, you all sit in a classroom and have this professor talk about physics, that inherently has not changed, right? But AI can make it asynchronous. AI can make it a lot more personalized and allow students to absorb that content in the way that will help them succeed the fastest. So those are just a couple of examples of how AI can help higher ed.
Well, yeah, and I guess just to put a cherry on top, to add something that I've seen a lot too is like the utilization of things like chatbots that can like text with students and be pulling from a knowledge base, and I think that gets to the you sort of alluded to with like kind of like just student wellness, because I think that can
Yeah.
even be kind of interpreted broadly of just like you're checking in with students, make sure that they are getting problem solved, and uh, you know kind of opening yourselves up more in a way that is more scalable than obviously like having a person manually text hundreds, thousands of people, or anything, even having to like like a tool that can like do mass text messages. Like it's like, okay, well, are you person or people going to respond to all of the messages? Like, yeah, at least have like a bot who can like triage things and escalate, whatever that is not able to answer and those sort of things. So yeah, I mean, there's just so much opportunity of being able
Exactly.
to, like you said, like analyze and sort of serve up the wealth of data that universities get, again, sort of throughout the entire sort of pipeline and student experience. And because yeah, I mean, I think it made me think too of like what you're even mentioning with like just your platform of on more of like the recruitment side, where an institution could just see where they're getting a lot of like interest or traction or whatever, and like that idea of like how you market that you were kind of speaking to as well, where like I see a lot where it's just like, oh wow, look, like a huge billboard on the highway. It's like that's the example where you're kind of just like, here, everybody and anybody who's just driving on this road, you're all seeing like the same, just sort of general message versus like, yeah, being able to like, target digital ads or something like that, more so on like, wow, we're getting a lot of traction or interest in this area. Let's kind of contour more towards that to kind of speak about the value that we can give to a particular population or something. So yeah, I mean, it's just being able to glean those insights and have something that's sort of like tracking and kind of serving up like, oh, this is like a top sort of indicator. So
Yeah. You mentioned correctly about bots, and like those technology already exists, right?
mhm, mhm,
And it's not like we're talking about something in the future. This is the present. There are industries that are using this technology. So the audience that you're targeting as a university, the Gen Z, they are digital natives. They are used to being interacting with bots, right? Or they will maybe prefer the use of technology than something else. Um, and even for you're speaking about billboards, but even at a more fundamental level, when you look at big companies like an Amazon or Coca-Cola, their marketing or their messaging would be significantly different for different countries, right? So even at that, at the minimum, we didn't see that happening when we were hosting those online fairs, and that is the change that we now bringing with universities. And of course, there's a lot of early adopters, a lot of visionary directors of admissions, VPs of enrollment that see that and are moving in that direction as well.
yeah. Yeah, it's really interesting stuff, and just yeah, just great to hear kind of what your experience has been. So, sort of speaking again, kind of generally, because I think AI can kind of be maybe something that people are like reticent about or confused about. So, I'm sure maybe you've already faced this. Speaking to how you've like been working with some innovative and forward thinking organizations. There's I'm sure just as many who uh, question the value or just don't understand the value of AI. So like, how do you kind of like, I guess, grapple with that? Because I think it is such a like, it's a new thing. It's having really great impacts, but I think, a lot's happened so quickly that some people are maybe just kind of, taken aback. So how do you kind of work with people to better understand the value of AI?
Yeah, first of all, I would say I get it. Right, that is, I understand the confusion and the reticence. Change is hard. If you look at the 70s or the 80s, and where the world was moving fast to being a digital one, there was a lot of reticence in different parts of the world about a lot of things. But the present the world is very much digital. The Gen Z that is that is coming up are digital natives. They probably can't even fathom a world which is not digital.
Hmm.
I'm a millennial, and I transitioned from the non-digital world to a digital world in my teens and 20s. So I still go between taking notes on paper and taking notes on my computer, but I still write long form articles um, on my on my computer, right? But this Gen Z are now writing long form articles on their phones. That's how this generation is growing up. The next generation after Gen Z, I don't know what you're going to call them,
Hmm.
Dustin, but they're going to be AI natives. They're not going to be able to fathom a world which is not personalized, where they're not consuming information or technology which is not personalized to their preferences and their needs. Yes, change is hard, but AI is not the future. AI is the present, and we are consumers of AI, whether we understand that or not. And and I think part of the confusion in the higher ed is also the speed at which they feel like they are needing to adapt or adopt it, right? Without this pandemic, they felt like they had this time to, shift to this new world. And the pandemic has been this forceful, accelerated change, and it's overwhelming. And while this technology exists, as we spoke about, because it has not received widespread adoption yet, it still needs to be adapted to this community in the higher ed. So the ed tech providers are still adapting the use of AI, the use of technology to fit the needs of higher ed and students and counselor and all the audiences that exist in this ecosystem. And it'll take a couple of cycles, even with this accelerated change. And honestly, like even the ed tech providers can do a better job of educating, informing, and getting really higher ed institutions involved as a partner, and not just a product that they need to sell. So it works. It works. It needs to work from all sides.
My thought always is just like I try to frame it where it's like it's because I think the other thing like the reticence too is like, oh well yeah, we get this bot or something and it's gonna like replace me. Like why do we even need people working in the office anymore or something? But especially with how they've taken shape in higher ed and certainly pretty much everywhere else too, but like that, it can triage a lot of frequently asked questions that you like build a knowledge base around, but like uh it still needs humans, like it still needs people. So it's not replacing, it's kind of augmenting.
Correct.
And yeah, the idea that like allows yeah, especially these like forward thinking organizations to really like scale up, have bigger and broader and better impact, and for our sake here, kind of like just serving students better. These are students that increasingly are studying online and from anywhere in the world in different time zones, like just be able to meet them where they're at, when they need help and all that. Yeah, like
Yeah.
AI empowered tools are a great way to do that.
Yeah, they're both sides of the spectrum, right? I mean, there are some people who'd be like, the future of higher ed is all online, it's all OPMs, and I don't believe that either, right? Future of higher
Right.
ed is not all online, it's not all automated. There, absolutely, we live, we are human beings. We want other human beings around us at the end of the day, and I think the future of higher ed is still blended. Just like the future of work is blended. If you asked people, what they would, think about being all remote before the pandemic, they will be like, no way. And now, once people have been forced to, work from home, it's going to be hard to go back to like a 5-day work week. And honestly,
Mhm.
people don't think it is needed. So it's the same with higher ed and AI. It's going to be somewhere in between. It's not going to be no people are needed, no professors are needed. It's all data driven and personalized and automated. But it's also not going to certainly not going to go back to 2019 ways.
Yeah, I mean, because I've talked to a lot of people, just sort of the idea of like, I think what we're going to be increasingly seeing is the hybrid university, and it's kind of
Exactly.
taking like, yeah, like the best of both worlds, like what's best served through digital means, what really needs a human, and because yeah, like obviously there's so much research and people have like built these theories around like the value of faculty engagement and social engagement for students with their peers and those sort of things. It's like, well, yeah, we can do that in person for some things, and then have opportunities for digital engagement that's more kind of like asynchronous, through stuff like Slack or Discord or whatever, and then also bring students together and people for like a really great speaker on campus or like a like a concert or something, like that those are things where it's just like it's really nice to like be in community with people to
Right.
like share that experience, but then also have the opportunities to like then chat about how awesome that event was on Slack or something, like with people, or like talk about your class with your faculty through a platform like that and those sort of things. So
Yeah.
and then yeah, I mean it's like kind of, I think a lot of it too with like, because some of those are like, that's like to me like the bare minimum of just saying like, yeah, I mean I think everybody like every program and school and campus should have Slack and for everybody and they can like connect there, but then like what you kind of do with that to optimize it through maybe AI, where you can like sit like, okay, in the beginning of the week I'm going to like schedule out our like bot to be like automating out pre-scheduled messages to like make announcements or whatever, like that you can like really like, realize the full potential of a variety of things that we kind of do to shape the student experience, sort of the campus experience through a variety of tools that could say like, oh, well, this is like the best time to like share these kind of messages to get the most engagement, or like, like it's always like tracking and learning and whatever. So yeah, I mean, so much great opportunity and everything. And I think to kind of segue from that, of the idea of like, yeah, these tools are here. They are increasingly being used. They're always getting better. So just, from your own point of view and your experience, like what are you looking forward to in your work in this space right now?
Yeah, institutions are undergoing this massive shifts around the world, right? A lot of these institutions that we speak with are excited and looking forward to the changes, and using the pandemic in some ways as an opportunity to overhaul the practices. Um, uh, and and we see ourselves as an accelerant of that change. We are fortunate to be in a position that can partner with universities, help them with this adoption, educate them about this adoption, and really shape the new world, which I also believe will make education a lot more accessible. To that earlier point as well, students are not looking for a 4-year degree which is all online, even if it decreases the price multifold. Students want a community, as you said. With the way the online learning can be shifted, or learning can be shifted online, it can make education a lot more accessible. And we are doing a lot of work in really making education accessible for students and universities to be able to connect directly with these students. So that is something that we're really looking forward to, how we can continue partnering with high schools and universities. And also, what's been really interesting to see is this massive talent boom in our space. It's no, it's not a surprise for a lot of folks to see that EdTech is receiving a lot of VC funding, a lot of institutional funding, which is attracting also a very high quality of talent, which has never really been seen before. And this quality of talent that we've been attracting at Cialfo are those who are working in other industries, who now want to work in education because they feel like they can make a bigger impact in the world through education than being in some of the other industries like e-commerce or taxi hailing, or what it may be. And I am every day looking forward to working with really this incredibly talented team and learning from them every day as we shape the new world.
Great stuff. Love to hear it. And I think as we're winding down, we always do like to take a moment if you have anything that you would like to share as you're, learning and growing, what you're seeing out there, what you're engaging with, any resources that you'd like to share that we could put in the show notes.
Resources. I constantly read or hear actually a couple of podcasts. Besides yours, Dustin, Masters of Scale is a good one that I read a lot, or hear a lot. I constantly read articles from inside higher ed, to be abreast with things that are happening in higher ed. But really, a couple of these podcasts like Masters of Scale or SaaSDR allows me to see what's happening in other industries and really learn from other industries, and bring it to edtech, bring it to education, because there are industries which are more mature than edtech at this point. And there are a lot of business leaders who've gone through this massive shift in their industries, and learning from them has been really interesting. So yeah, those are a couple of ones that I would recommend if people are, even if you're a higher ed professional. Your sources of inspiration does not always need to come from the industry itself. Often it comes from other industries. So recommend a couple of those books, especially for higher ed leaders. Yeah.
Good stuff. Yeah, I appreciate it. And then, I feel like you already had such a beautiful sentiment in the other question, but I'll just see if there's anything else, any sort of like final thoughts, inspirational quotes, calls to action, anything that you'd like to share to wrap up the episode, about this topic.
Sure. Let me think. So I would say there are two types of higher ed folks that we meet on a daily basis, or if we can put them in two buckets, and it's not the only way to bucketize the folks that we speak, but let's just say these are two ways. One is those that are really looking forward to this opportunity of adopting AI in their practices, be in recruitment or learning or student welfare in different ways, right? And really using this opportunity to change or overhaul the student experience. For those folks, I would say like work with companies who you see as long-term partners, right? Who have an education background themselves, who want to make a difference for the long term, and who really want to work with you as partners, not just as vendors who want to sell you something, and work with them as partners as well to really shape the higher ed because you would be an important player in shaping how higher ed operates for decades to come. And those second group, I would say, the ones who, as you described, Dustin, slightly confused or reticent, to them, I would say, just start somewhere. Start with a conversation. Start with listening to a podcast. Attend webinars. See what your peers are up to. Who are early adopters. It can be overwhelming, but I promise you, the sooner you start the conversation with whoever in a tech, be it Alpha or whoever you feel comfortable with, you'll soon start seeing this more as an opportunity than a challenge, an opportunity for you to save your team time, budget resources, and also more importantly, carbon footprint, and get better outcomes.
Always appreciate a final thought, call to action to listen to podcasts to learn and grow. I mean, because I think an episode like this hopefully would be kind of the appetizer to get somebody to be like, yeah, maybe I should, like look into this a little more and do a little bit more research and all that. Because I think with so many things of just like the things that I'm exposed to and work with every day and kind of see and know and understand the value of them. Over the past year, so many more people have been exposed, and I'm looking forward to hopefully more like research or just sort of like data or things that folks just like sharing their experiences help might keep pushing this along and further adoption and just further uh, opportunities for impact for students and institutions and everything. And just certainly echo a lot of what you're saying in terms of just like forging these partnerships too, because I think that's something that's kind of an evolution of the space as well, is where I'm seeing a lot more just earnestly committed organizations, these ed tech tools and platforms and all these sort of things that really just want to partner with universities, have an active, ongoing relationship to, just drive further success for students. Like we just, know so much now how important furthering someone's education is and wanting to make that as accessible as possible and supporting students to be successful. And certainly we've talked a lot about of just like helping students to find the right choice institution and program, and just understand things better and just have that process be easier for them. So
Absolutely
yeah
exciting times ahead.
yeah great. Well, I appreciate you so much for all that you've shared and for taking time out, and we'll have ways to connect with you and the things that you mentioned and everything down in the show notes as usual. So just thank you so much, Rohan, for hanging out, and just really appreciate it.
Awesome. This was fun. Thank you, Dustin.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the podcast. Make sure to rate, review, and subscribe so you never miss an episode. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode of the Higher Ed Geek podcast.